Yiakoumaki, the director of the Hellenic Center in London. For those of you who don't know her, Dr. Yiakoumaki is a renowned curator and has made significant contributions to the field of curational studies. She's also a curatorial studies consultant at she was before the Hellenic Center at Whitechapel Gallery, and has been co-director of the MA Curating Art and Public program since its inception. It has happened that my master's degree was in cultural relations policy and diplomacy at Goldsmiths University, and I know that you also studied in Goldsmiths, and it's an amazing university when it comes to culture and when it comes to arts. So from 2005 to 2022, Dr. Yiakoumaki served as a curator and head of curatorial studies and archives at Whitechapel Gallery, where she pioneered a groundbreaking program of research exhibitions centered around the utilization of archives as a valuable resource for curatorial practice. Her work involved developing innovative ways to engage with archival material and challenge traditional curatorial methodologies. During her tenure, Dr. Yiakoumaki devised the Neon Curatorial Exchange and Award from 2011 to 2020. That was a remarkable initiative that fostered professional relationships between curators in the United Kingdom and Greece. This program, founded by the Neon organization, played a crucial role in strengthening cross-cultural collaborations and enriching curatorial practices on both sides. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is we do have so many artists and so many women in our community interested in arts, and this is great. Your background is so fascinating. In addition to her accomplishments at Whitechapel Gallery, Dr. Yiakoumaki co-directed the Athens Biennale as Director of Research and International Networks from 2016 to 2017. Her involvement in the renowned Athens Biennale allowed her to contribute to the shaping of this significant international art event. Notably, in 2017, she co-curated Waiting for the Barbarians, a groundbreaking statement performance and series of events by the Athens Biennale during Documenta 14. This collaboration further exemplifies Dr. Yiakoumaki's dedication to pushing boundaries and engaging with art in thought-provoking ways. So it has been, there have been so many amazing exhibitions that Dr. Yiakoumaki has curated, over 40 exhibitions, and some notable exhibitions he curated include John Latham, An Archive in 2010, Rothko in Britain in 2012, Stephen Willett's Concerning Our Present Way of Living in 2014. Dr. Nayia Yiakoumaki's extensive experience, expertise in curatorial studies, and dedication to promoting artistic exchange make her a highly esteemed figure in the field. Today, we have the privilege of delving into her insights and perspectives on the Hellenic Center and her role as its director. So without further ado, let's warmly welcome Dr. Nayia Yiakoumaki to this interview, and all of you who are watching live, feel free to share with us your thoughts in the comments below. Dr. Yiakoumaki, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, for this fascinating introduction. I know you've done incredible research, all the projects I've done, but thanks so much for representing me under this extremely positive light.
I'm a big fan of arts, but after I got the opportunity to get to know a little bit about your background, I was really amazed by all these exhibitions and how multidimensional your career has been throughout the years. So my very first question then, it will be about this specific background and about your academic research. And I would like I was curious to know what initially sparked your interest in this field.
Yes, so I have to say that I started initially as an artist. So I studied art and I thought I would be an artist using initially photography and video. That was my first studies. And I have to give you a little bit here the background, because I grew up in Athens and I studied in London in the 1980s, and then went back to Athens to start my career as an artist. Potentially. And the background, the environment at the time was very different than the one we see now when we go to Athens. There was very few possibilities for artists, young artists, like I was just 23 years old, of course, entering the arena, to show their work, to be in conversation with other people. We had very few galleries, and these were the more known commercial galleries, like really a handful of galleries, which opened their doors only to very established Greek artists, apart from Γκαλερί Αρχείων, who worked with international artists. So this was completely out of reach. And so imagine this landscape where you are an active and passionate young artist going to openings, but it's the same people around you again and again, and you're the young one and the others are the ones up in the hierarchy. So huge gap there. Nevertheless, I pursued this. I had a couple of exhibitions or more, which was fine. And in a couple of years, I felt I knew everyone in a way in that field. So at the same time, I was very lucky to be offered a job as a lecturer in a sort of photography establishment. And so my research was continuous through my teaching. And I always thought that research and studying will be part of my life. So if I would continue now, if I had the time, but unfortunately, I always think of different MAs that I can do, or, all sorts of things. But anyway, I'll have to pace myself here. So in that context that I was working in and trying to have a dialogue within fellow artists, which also imagine no social media, there was no networks, very, very little promotion and sort of space for development. I then started curating informally. What I mean informally is not in a museum, because we didn't have a museum of contemporary art then. So I started curating in Athens back then, in sort of, by that time it was sort of mid-90s, late 90s, with friends, artists that were friends. And so I did curate 2 or 3 exhibitions, even more, with people from the Fine Arts School. And sort of that was a very creative process. So it was also very interesting, because in a way, you could still be creative in my head, but without having that struggle of, trying to show your work, in a way, trying to break through a very solid and difficult environment. And it was nice to give platform to other people. So I realized the creativity of curating. And from that moment on, it took a few years until I became a curator proper, but the seed was planted in my head. Then I came to the UK in 99, and it was then after 10 years of academic career in Greece and an artist career that I went fully into curating and the academia. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's it.
Fascinating stuff. And I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes this is exactly the same conversation we have with many members in our community. This kind of idea of serendipity and how some things they seem to happen almost accidentally, but all at the same time they happen for a reason, and then we end up finding our true purpose, right? So it's fascinating. So I was wondering, because I know that you've been recently appointed as the director of the Hellenic Center, so how it aligns with your background and how it aligns, with your experience as a curator.
Mm-hmm. So as you may know, I'm not sure your members know, but I'm a very new director of the Hellenic Center, not that new now, so it's been 6 months, let's say, in this post. And I am truly enjoying the creative process, which has kicked in fairly recently. In the beginning, of course, I had to learn myself. I had to go through if you want, the hurdles of getting to understand an organization, which is a charity. I worked for charities all my life, but I didn't direct them. So there's a senior administration process in a way that I had to learn. So after these first 3 months, I can really say that I'm enjoying that creative process of thinking, repositioning, trying to, in a way, infuse new light into an organization. And as you said before we came on live, my team is a wonderful team of people who have been at the organization way before me. They've been there for 18 years, 22 years. And I just have all my respect for people who have such deep inherent knowledge of an organization. So to come back to your question, I also started learning, but I have, of course, my experience from before. And so after 32 years of working in the arts solidly, I've learned so many things as well through my work at Whitechapel Gallery, but before as well, as an academic, as a researcher, as someone who was a creative producer, let's say. And so the things that really fed into this role as a director now are things like, in terms of management, let's say the potential and the importance of development, the importance of networking. Networking is not a fun PR thing. It sometimes is really demanding and difficult. You have to stay late out, or you have to see people all the time and you don't get to do your emails. But I truly believe that through networks and synergies and collaborations, things happen, and they can happen later on. Sometimes you start something and in 3 years, something happens. So I've learned very early on the benefits of networking, but also working within a large organization, even if you are a creative, let's say, component, the importance of communication, of marketing, of very careful wording. So as part of my role, I had to attract other people to the organization. I had to attract fundraisers. I had to funding supporters, patrons, the research community. So I've learned to be versatile as well. I've learned how to approach groups. And, these are big lessons because you just don't have them in your pocket necessarily when you work. And so also I was at an organization for so long that is considered one of the top organizations in visual arts in the UK and for some internationally. And there is not much room for error there, meaning there's huge pressure. Everything we had to put out there, from the labels on the wall to, the painting of the wall to the talks that we were going to give, had to really be that what they would, we all considered to be of very high quality. This is a lot of pressure, but it makes you work consistently and not allowing yourself to say, oh, it's all right, we can do with mediocre, it's fine, So I think I'm bringing all of this background with me, as we all do, and it really helped me get into my new shoes as the director of the Hellenic Center.
That's really amazing, and what resonates with me so much, Dr. Yiakoumaki, is what you've said earlier about the power of networking, and it is it's so beautifully said that something that you create as a relationship, you build a relationship today, or you create a network today, with the expectation that will flourish at some point tomorrow, in 2 years, 3 years. But the power of networking is a thing that keeps us alive and active and energized within our community in empowered Greek ladies. And the reason is because we have seen and we have witnessed ourselves so many times, women within our community just unconditionally giving to each other, supporting each other, empowering each other. And there is something so inspiring when it comes to that it's priceless and so hard to describe it. And then what you've said about pressure and how pressure many times can actually lead us to raise our standards, right? And make us more creative. This is definitely, I relate to that as an entrepreneur myself, because that's something I get to experience every single day. Pressure that makes me become more resourceful and try to be thinking outside the box and all those things. So I hope those ideas can inspire our members who are watching live, or the members who will watch it a little bit later.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, Alexandra. And just to say, what I really cherish is that no day is boring. Because, no day is the same, because every day there is a challenge to overcome. And otherwise, I think professional life would have not been such an inspiring, creative field if it was, oh no, again, I know exactly what's going to happen during the day.
It sounds to me like you have embraced an entrepreneurial mindset and a growth mindset, which is amazing, and it can inspire so many other women or people within your environment to be like, oh wow, yeah, actually some things that they seem to be impossible can be possible, right? So
Definitely.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question, which is, personally, I love storytelling, and that leads me to that question that is all about if you can share with us some memorable experience from any part of your career life that you would be open to share, really.
Yeah, okay. Obviously there are a lot of moments, but perhaps I can choose a couple of small personal moments of no significance to anyone else but me. And then one that is more professionally well communicated and people can understand it. So I'll tell you one that really shaped me and changed my future, actually. So I am 23 years old, and I was given this job to teach in the photography school in Athens, and I have to replace a very known sociologist who had the lesson before me, Δημοσθένης Αγραφιώτης. He was really known in the field. And so I'm 23, and they tell me that, and I think, yes, I'm shivering, but yes, I'm taking that challenge. And of course, then going home and thinking, what have I done? So the lesson starts in September, and I am studying hard. The group is older than me. The majority of people, it's adults. I'm the young 23-year-old, and every lesson is a struggle for me. Meaning, I'm very insecure. I'm not enjoying getting there. It's all a bit of a, why am I doing that? Why did I say yes? And so 3 months down, before the Christmas break, I think you have to resign. Why damaging yourself every time you have to go to this lesson? And no point, you can do other things. And I know that I'm going to resign after the break. There's a break, 2 hours less. It was a 4-hour lesson. So just me speaking to people, 2 hours, break, 2 hours. And I decide I'm going to do it after the break, speak to the director when things are quiet. And at the break, a student comes to me unexpectedly and says, oh, can I speak to you, Mrs. Yiakoumaki? And I say, yeah, of course. And she said, I just want to thank you so much for the lessons you've been giving us. They've inspired me. They've made me think of photography in a different light. And I'm looking at this young woman and I'm saying, what is she saying? But I'm actually starting to believe that, hang on, there's something here that maybe something that I'm doing with these lessons. And after that, I feel a little bit, confused and slightly elated. And I decide not to resign. And I've had a 32-year career since, of course, as a curator later, but always teaching, always in the arts, always mentoring students. And I think it was that moment that really made me turn and look at truly, forget my insecurity, and just think, you can do that. You've done it, apparently. And so this is one story. And another very quick one was at the Whitechapel Gallery. Again, my early days, I was very heavily pregnant with my first child, who's now 21. 8 months, I was typing at my desk, fairly distant from the desk because I couldn't reach. And there walks my director, who is considered one of the 10 top international personalities in the art world. Super famous woman, extremely charismatic as a leader, and everyone, including myself, were admiring her. So she walks in there, looks at my tummy and my condition, I couldn't even approach the keyboard. And she opens her bag and takes out a half-filled bottle, baby bottle that had, milk halfway. She had just dropped her daughter to the nursery and had come to work quickly. And she looks at me and goes, "This is the future." And so, but obviously I thought, my God, she is also a normal person and a mother. And if she can do that, perhaps I can do it as well. And, these two moments, nothing, meaningless to anyone else, but they really encouraged me, for routes that I took later in my life. Many other moments that have to do with, working with a feminist activist group, the Guerrilla Girls, which I so much admired. And I just working with them as one of their collaborators and just realizing these big sort of icons for me are actually, again, normal people. We can create projects together with people we once admired and they were perhaps 30 years older than us. It's all about clear communication. So, this was one of a memorable experience for me as well with the Guerrilla Girls.
Sounds amazing. Some of our members were alive, but some of the members are wondering where we are. Just give me 1 second to make sure everything is okay. But you see us live. I see us live here.
Okay.
So that then takes me to the next question, which is about how did your previous role as a head of curatorial studies and curator of the archive gallery at the Whitechapel Gallery actually contribute to your understanding of curating archives and their importance in the art world?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I actually got my role as curator of the archive because of my PhD research. So I started looking at archives as an alternative source for curatorial activity rather than just working with artwork. I was trying to find a way that a curator can be political in the wider sense of the word. So work with information, work with contradictions, work with artists, of course, but also tell stories that you cannot tell just through artists' work. And so this research, which of course led to my PhD and so on, I was at the Whitechapel since 2000, but I know you have 2005. In 2005, I became curator of the Archive Gallery with a grant by the Paul Mellon Centre for British Art, British Studies. For studies in British art. And that's how that sort of dedication and continuous research within the field of archive started. But I certainly believe that we have to look as curators alternative resources all the time, and not just the ones that have registered in the canonical art history, the canonical curatorial history. Archives are full of potential. And if we are free to use them, and I was very lucky at Whitechapel Gallery, I had carte blanche to use, to curate a program that was quite unique in its sense that it was located at a particular space. It was always research-led. It always enabled collaborations with other people, bringing new knowledge in. So, very fruitful ground for a curator. I was very lucky to have this freedom.
Amazing. And in the meantime, I double check and we are all good. We
are all good. Okay.
So that leads me to my next question then, which is again about your previous work and more specifically with Neon Curatorial Exchange and Award, and how this has impacted emerging British and Greek curators.
Okay, so thank you for mentioning. That was quite a special project as well, which I did from 2011 until, well, it finished in 2022. And it involved, just to say a little bit for your members, it involved a trip to Greece and a trip to the UK. So it was about helping emerging curators network with each other and sort of start establishing collaborations that wouldn't have happened before. Because again, think of Athens 12, 13, 15 years ago. You know, no one wanted to go to Athens apart from tourists. The creative practitioners were looking elsewhere. Still London, New York, but Athens wasn't on the map. And so it was really important to, in a way, forge these relationships. Between two elections, these very known elections, and the group of UK and the group of actually came and saw experienced the city in this moment, which was so transformative and so shocking at the same time. And so that was a powerful experience for them. What they told me after is that they needed days to digest and understand what we gave them, the places we took them, the people that they were talking to were opening completely, you know, their heart and soul, and talking to them how they're managing to do things with no money, how difficult things are, and so on. Anyway, that's just an example for 2012, but you can imagine the impact of that exchange. And so over the years, the Greek-based curators came over, also they networked, they met with people. Collaboration started at some point, and we have good examples of people who would have never met before, and they would have never linked London and Athens or London and Thessalonica, and they have engaged in very fruitful experiences. But I think positioning curating within its socio-political context of the countries that we are relating to was the most powerful, if you want, and helpful impact of this project.
Sounds like an incredible project, and based on cultural relations and cultural exchange, which, I mean, yeah, it sounds like a really, really inspiring kind of project, and I can see why it was so powerful. I mean, that applies to every single area, right? When we bring people on one single kind of area of work, and we bring them together from different cultural environments to interact and to work together, they can learn so much and they can inspire so much each other, and especially throughout, you know, a time that can be a really challenging time politically and socially. Then that leads me again back to Athens, because you've been the former co-director of the Athens Biennale organization. Happens to be I'm a very big fan of this organization and the festivals and everything. So what were some of the challenges that you encountered during this period of time?
Yes, so this was interesting because I was doing it in parallel with my job at Whitechapel Gallery, and, you know, raising my family here in the UK. And so I was traveling every month to Athens to follow the organization. I was very, very honored to have been asked to co-direct. The founding director, Pokayo, had asked me. There were many challenges, apart from the personal one, as I said, juggling, you know, two jobs, a demanding job here in the UK full-time, directing the biennial at the same time, family trips. I must say, a challenge for me, and I then realized how just 2 decades can completely transform you. It was the difference of the mentality within the professional work environment between Britain and Greece. I had worked there for years, as I mentioned in the beginning, but that was a huge challenge for me. You know, I was very used to the sort of certain starting times and ways of having meetings. Meetings can go on for 1 hour or 2 hours if you need to discuss more, but not for 4 hours. But there they were going on for hours. They were being interrupted with people having a little break in the meantime. And I was thinking, that's such a different world. But things were happening in this mode that I had to relearn. Also, what was the challenge was the funding, the lack of funding. It was, you know, a tremendous hurdle, but people around me were used to working like that. And so they were still dreaming, and they were still planning, and they were still scheduling. And all I was thinking as the sort of British-based curators, the bank account hasn't got the money. And they was like, oh, it will come. And it did come. But is that planning without knowing? For me, it was slightly terrifying, I have to admit. And so, yeah, these were the main challenges, I think. The difference of pace, of understanding of the environment, the day that could be easily 18-hour day, easily, and everyone seemed to be fine. Because I have to say, this is also a difference I encountered when I started working here. When I lived in Greece, people like me, you know, in my 20s or 30s, in the arts, did not have children. And if you had a child at the time, you became a family, you became a very conservative entity. But when I came to the UK at the gallery, and I could see the young parents coming with their children and the kids crawling all over the gallery and the staircases, and in general, this was, you know, artists, very bohemian artists coming with their kids and saying, I can't do that because my kid has a school, you know, event. And I thought, oh, that's so accepted here in the UK. And in Greece, it wasn't back then in the 80s, in the 90s. And so I realized that this was still the case in some of the art world, in sort of the art institutions in Greece. It was still like that. So people that were able to work in those conditions were people without families, perhaps. And they could give all of them, you know, the whole time, the whole day, the whole weekend to it. And I couldn't anymore.
It's interesting because it also reminds me on a personal level, like the last time I've seen something like that, the challenge, my way of thinking as a Greek person who keeps having this kind of, partly that kind of Greek mentality. I was in a festival last summer, Burning Man, and it's all about arts, and it's all about innovation and forward-thinking ideas. And what I found so eye-opening, and it was a liberating kind of experience for myself, was seeing so many people there with the little babies.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what, that I would have never ever imagined that this would be possible. But because I experienced that myself, I was like, oh, actually, you know, this is possible. And other people, that's how they live their lives. And there is no like, doesn't mean that if you have a family, you need to stop doing certain things and stop being certain ways. And the reason I raise that is because I know many women and many members in our community. We do have these conversations, many working mothers who are like, Alex, I'm not sure if that's the right thing. I feel guilty towards my family because I don't have the time I need to give that time to my kids. But also at the same time, I feel guilty because I'm not pursuing the career I was wanting, and I'm always in the middle. And what's the right thing and what's the wrong thing? And of course, there's not right or wrong thing. But it's so important, I feel like, when we hear stories like yours, Dr. Yiakoumaki, because that makes so many of our members to feel like that sense of relief, you know?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I'm not saying at all that I done things right because I have two daughters. Everyone decides for themselves. For me, perhaps with my first daughter, I went to work too soon. She was just 3 months. And I know I will never do that again if I had the chance. So with my second daughter, I learned the lesson and I went back to work when she was 1 year old. But you learn, you learn. And what for me was important is I still have a partner that was able to compensate, when I was working, he would look after the children. But I also thought, I'm bringing up two young women and I want them to see that it is possible to pursue your own dreams, ideals, without ignoring your family. And I think, obviously, this is a big challenge for the individual who tries to do that. We all know it. Everyone who's a working mother knows it. But it gives, I felt, a good example. And by all means, I wasn't absent. It's just that, we were working, both of us. I'm not sure. Maybe I would do it all differently if I had the chance. But then I thought I didn't. I thought that was the way to go.
I think that's inspiring. And to me, I mean, that's what I call my own kind of role model. I want to be a mother one day, but without sacrificing, what are the things that make me passionate and driven and enthusiastic about my own career. So if somebody, just goes and sees your background and your profile and all the previous things you have done, they will see a number of achievements and big wins. But what was the one thing that you personally feel and consider as your greatest achievement?
That's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it's hard to consider achievements. Sometimes I just work, I don't see. I see this as a continuous field in a way of everyday work. But if I could say some things, is that I do like very much cultivating and changing places, and that's why I've developed a lot of projects and they became fruitful. So I sort of have a commitment, resilience, if you want. I like building things. A friend of mine said, you're a builder. You like building. I like building. That is in a way the metaphor. And so the same happened every single time in my life. With teaching when I was 23, I thought, okay, that's a good challenge. With the Whitechapel, with the Athens Biennale, with Neon, and now with the Hellenic Center. So I enjoy that process. If I can say achievements, maybe I love the fact that I did contribute to research. I helped, in a way, unknown stories come to the front. I was perhaps diverse in my work without even knowing. So I always thinking in a diverse sort of mode. And it's not an achievement, but I'm happy looking back that I've always tried to help people who were coming for my support, advice. I mean, there were a lot of Greek people, but not just, where I was at Whitechapel and as a lecturer and as, director of the MA. And there's some kind of, I think I'm kind of proud that some of this help flourished and went further. But other than that, I'm not sure.
That sounds like a great contribution to me, for sure. And then we, as a community, we are very much interested in your upcoming projects and your upcoming events at the Hellenic Center. So what are the upcoming projects?
Okay, so we have a lot of things coming up. Of course, as we know, we're changing the program. We're having events that would shape up through collaboration. So I'm now discussing a new collaboration with the University of the Arts, for instance, which includes several of the fine art universities in London, based in London. And I'm thinking of events that relate to their alumni or graduates, with other organizations, again, that I cannot name at the moment because they haven't been confirmed or announced. In terms of new program, we're launching our visual arts program in October with 2 exhibitions, one of a major Greek artist. Again, I cannot necessarily say, but it's really exciting that it's going to happen at the same time during Frieze Art Week. We're 10 minutes walk from Frieze. The Hellenic Center will become that place where the work of the artist is going to be shown for the first time, and it's not in its entirety because it's not a retrospective, but with more works. We're also opening in the smaller exhibition space with a British artist who did a residency in Cyprus, Amy Stevens, who's also at Frieze Sculpture Park. Other events have a Hellenistic feast from an archaeologist who is a historian of food, and she will create a feast, and people will be invited to come and follow that feast, and it will be exactly what people were eating in the Hellenistic years in that particular period that she's looking. She's, in a way, planting the herbs herself because they don't exist anymore in nature. She's making the cheese and bread herself, but also we're going to see some very interesting, strange recipes, what the ancient Greeks used to eat. And so there's all sorts of different events coming up. They're all in the making. The program will be released in September. And I do hope that some of your members will come to see it. Some maybe want to become our own members and get to know the information first and have discount at our events and be closer to us in a way. But I do hope, yes, that you will start using the center. You'll be coming more and more and following our programs.
It would be really amazing, and that's our intention too, Dr. Yiakoumaki. How can we, if someone in our community would like to become a member of the Hellenic Center, what are the steps?
So the steps are very clear on our website. So they need to send an email to my colleague, Maria Kali, and there's a different levels of membership. For instance, the membership, I have to say, is the same since 94. So the fee is still, I think, £50 per year. If people are a couple, they can have a combined one. And if people live outside of London, because we understand that they can't benefit as much, then there's a reduced fee. There's also a membership for young people, for youth members, and so on. I have to say that we're also changing our website in the next couple of months. So this will be still very visible, and all our programs will be visible, but we're in a transitional phase of changing our visual identity, and I also see this as one of our upcoming projects.
Amazing. That sounds incredible. And I mean, it sounds like, to me, like the Hellenic Center is on a kind of a rebranding kind of phase, but I might be wrong.
Hopefully, let's see. I mean, we're doing our best. We really seen new people coming in through the doors since January. Every Thursday when we have our own program, there's new people coming again and again, and everyone says, why don't I know this place? And so I'm glad that they now can say, well, I've been there once at least.
Yeah. So, well, with our community, we have been there several times, and our intention is to make Hellenic Center our kind of mini hub where we can go and meet there. I know you have a nice cafe area as well where we can go and get to network and mingle with the rest of the members in our community, which is great. But also there are so many other ways. So we've said to our members that we would love to share a newsletter with them with all your events, so they will be updated, and that will be another great thing. And then there is the exhibition. There's a series of exhibitions that are taking place within a couple of months. So I'm just so excited, and I think our community is also excited to be part of this new phase or a series of a new kind of events within the Hellenic Center, and to be there and witness this amazing event. So that's our intention. And I just, as we're moving towards the end, I know that some of you cannot see and watch and interact, but don't worry, we will upload this on our group as we have done this before. And you can comment and you can watch it later. as we are at the very end of our interview, what are the key takeaways or thoughts or anything at all that you would like to share with our community?
Oh, yes. Well, there's a few thoughts in regards to being open-minded, always in our work as to be personally a creative practitioner, cultural producer. So resilience in coming to a foreign country, initially, a lot of us did. You just need this resilience to go through. Open-mindedness, I think this is key to be able to acclimatize in an environment. It's tricky when we live in a different place because we chose to, but we cannot, accept it. And so it's not good for us, it's not good for our children who cannot see that their parents are settled somewhere. So I would say be open, just acclimatize and be resilient and always forward thinking. And in terms of my job in curating, I think we have to continuously conceive projects with diversity in mind, whatever that translates to. And so also try to think outside of the box, because we were educated within a box. And I think it's important to try to think outside of that.
Yeah, and I also know that you're a big believer of women empowerment, and that's also part of your values and beliefs and philosophy. And I feel like this, that was the main element that brought us together, and we feel so much inspired by you. So I want to say big thanks for today. It was such an amazing interview, and thank you so much for sharing some personal stories as well, which they spoke to my heart both, and I can tell that how some simple moments can make such a huge difference. And it's just that we need to be aware and pay attention, right? And then to be following our true purpose, which is exactly what you did. And I'm so glad we had this conversation today, Dr. Yiakoumaki.
Thank you so much for giving me the platform again. I'm very touched with the comments you said, with your questions, the reactions. I'm just very grateful. And as we said, the Hellenic Center is open. I can take your members around to this small exhibition we have. We can arrange that. I'm sorry some people cannot hear or see us, but hopefully they will be able. But thank you so much for your interest in my work and the Hellenic Center, of course.
Thank you so much for your time today. Also, I want to say that we will record this and we will put it on our YouTube channel, and we will share it, this YouTube interview in our group from time to time, so all our members have a good understanding of Hellenic Center and all your upcoming events and plans. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your energy, your amazing energy, your amazing vibes. And I wish you to have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. The same for you and everyone else. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a lovely, lovely rest of the day.
You too. Bye-bye.